You know, when Saints Row 1 was released back in '06, I'm not going to say it revolutionized the gaming industry, because for one, a lot of people looked at it as a Grand Theft Auto Part 2 / copycat, but I'm not going to sit here and act like they didn't add to it. Much like Grand Theft Auto, Saints Row 1 for sure added a lot of creativity and longevity to the sandbox genre. And 2 was fun as hell to play. At the time, Vice City Stories was the newest and latest addition in the Grand Theft Auto series, so Saints Row 1 releasing that year, in my opinion, put up good competition for Grand Theft Auto, while also creating their own lane in the world of open world gaming. It was a great game, and it was successful, but no one was prepared for the sequel, Saints Row 2. That shit blew the first one out the fucking water. Saints Row 1 brung it to the door. Saints Row 2 solidified the franchise. That game was stellar. From the character customization, to the story told, to a brand new collection of characters being introduced since the game takes place like 15 years in the future. New enemies, new everything. To the point where you kind of forgot you're playing in the same map you played as in the first game, but with another section added to it. Saints Row 2 was a hit, so it was a no-brainer that, like the first game got a sequel because of its success, that game would get a sequel because of their success. Little did I fucking know how different the third entry would be from the second. Now, with the success of Saints Row 2, 3 years after its release, Volition released the third entry, Saints Row the Third. Now, it's no secret how batshit crazy the Saints Row series got. With 4, they introduced the whole alien invasion, going up into space shit, and then with Gat Out of Hell, starring Johnny Gat, demons and Satan was the theme of the game. Both games gave you superhuman abilities, whereas you can fly and jump over buildings and use super strength and super speed. It was crazy. The series went from GTA San Andreas to Prototype within a matter of like 2 games. And even though everybody shit talks 4 and Gat Out of Hell, and they all make it seem like all this shit started with that, technically all of that started with Saints Row 3. They might not have went as overboard as 4 or Gat Out of Hell, but a lot of the goofy, silly, lunatic shit started with Saints Row 3. They introduced a lot of that to the series. Not saying Saints Row 1 and 2 didn't have funny moments, but 3 really changed the atmosphere of the franchise. And with that being said, I know a lot of people, they look at Saints Row 4 as the death of the series, but in my eyes, since Saints Row 3 was technically the one who introduced some of that to the franchise, I figured that it would be a good idea to discuss whether or not this game was actually the true death of the Saints Row franchise. Now, Saints Row the Third was released November 15th of 2011. It's a third-person open-world shooter, just like the previous ones before it. Now, I remember at the time where they were building up to their release with the commercials and the trailers, I was extremely excited for this game. That commercial with the shootout in the penthouse between the Saints Row members and the Morningstar, I loved it. Like, the build up to this game was crazy because I think the third one had more of a push media-wise than the second one did, or the first one. And it's funny because they even kind of told y'all what the game was going to be like before you got it. They kind of hinted at the wackiness that was being introduced in a couple of the commercials. Like the Tim and Eric commercials. They're very skit-like and comedic. So you kind of got a grasp that it wasn't going to be as serious as the second or first one. I vaguely remember a G4 clip. This is when G4 was still a thing. Where they did a 2-player clip where they grabbed some dude in a hot dog costume and they had some sort of sonic boom gun and shot him into a billboard. It was some weird shit. Even the way the game opens up, it opens up by ripping off Star Wars. In a Star Wars-esque intro, the game basically tells you what happened between Saints Row 2 and 3. The Saints, after taking over Stillwater and throwing out all the gangs, they ended up becoming celebrities. They never really explain how, especially throughout the game, but according to this Star Wars intro, that's what happened. The movies, commercials, everything. And to give you an example, the game opens up with Pierce getting his ass beat in an alley, and It ends with him being saved by some energy drink mascot. It hands him an energy drink, he drinks it, and he gets superpowers. Come to find out, this is a commercial for the Saints' new energy drink, Saints Flow. This is a pretty good representation of a number of things, how far their celebrity status has gone, and the wackiness of the third game. Now, as I said, the Saints are big time celebrities, right? So they have this actor tagging along with them while they rob a bank. He was supposed to be starring one of the characters in some movie, and he decided to get first-person experience. The bank robbery / meet and greet goes wrong, the bank tellers fight back, and it ends up in a shootout in a Stillwater bank. Now, this mission always kind of confused me because they marketed this as a bank robbery, the Saints did, but it turned into some sort of celebrity meet and greet. As I said, they're celebrities now. They have people lining up waiting to take pictures with them and shit. And then when Burke, the actor who's supposed to be tagging along, presses one of the bank tellers, Shawnee gets pissed at him for being a dick. I don't understand the first part of this mission. Is it a bank robbery or a meet and greet? But that's just me. Throughout the remainder of the mission, the waves of enemies get more and more difficult. It goes from armed bank tellers to armed assassins and police officers. Shit goes all the way left. Now, the coolest part of this mission to me was when they decided to steal the bank vault as a whole by calling in one of their helicopters to come get it. And the boss decides to fend off the police officers while also maintaining balance on top of the vault. They're trying to get away with this vault full of money, but mad police helicopters are coming through stopping them. So now you have to shoot your way through damn near an army of Stillwater police officers while trying not to fall off of the vault. I personally loved it. At the time, I saw a clip of this before I actually had the chance to play it, and that was the thing that got me hooked on the game. The mission ends with the Saints getting arrested, the bank robbery goes horribly wrong, and now they're left in a prison cell waiting their sentence. Now, a group of strangers dressed like the people who they shot up in the bank arrive and bail them out. Come to find out, the Saints robbed a bank owned by a criminal syndicate named the Morning Star. Now, the leader of this syndicate, Philippe Lauren, gives them a choice. Either give up over 60% of their assets to them, or die as consequence for robbing their bank. The Saints refuse and attack their captors, and now they're forced to shoot their way out of this plane to escape back to Stillwater. Now, this is where the game commits probably the biggest sin they've ever committed in that series at the time. Right before the boss and Shawnee are about to escape, they call back to Gat, who was presumably holding off other members of the Syndicate so they can have time to escape. And it ends with Johnny being shot to death off screen at the end of his sentence on the other end of the call. They killed one of the fan favorites of this series off screen. Shawnee and the boss are forced to jump out of the plane and are left free falling through the skies into whatever new city they wind up in. After finding a way back into the plane by shooting the window, killing the pilot, and then somehow shooting Philippe while free falling through the plane, escape back out the other end of the plane, grab Shawnee, and then safely free fall into the new city of Steelport, which is where this game takes place. They reach an ATM so they can transfer all their assets back into their pockets, and they find out that the Syndicate hacked their systems and left them broke. So now they're in a brand new city surrounded by a group of new gangs, and they're left penniless, broke. They gotta start at square one all over again. And from this point on, the story takes off. They're in this new city, they have to rally a new group of allies, bring all the Saints from Stillwater back to Steelport, get revenge for Johnny Gat, kill off all these new gangs, and regain their reputation. Now, aside from the commercial in the beginning and the slight meet and greet, these two missions were taken very seriously. The shootout in the bank was very straightforward, and the plane shootout was 100% serious from beginning to end. I think the only funny part in that was when he caught Shawnee and he was like, listen, I got to shoot the plane, I got to shoot the window, shoot the guard, get in and kill him. And she was like, you mean we, right? And she was like, yo, listen, I'm going to catch you in a minute. I'll be back. And he tossed her to the side. That was funny. But for the most part, the first two missions were relatively serious. it's not till you dive into the story completely where you start noticing a lot more wacky shit. Like, the tone is completely off from the second game. The story was still fun as hell to play though. Now I want to get more into the gameplay. One thing I will say about this game, just like the second one, there's so much shit to do. The story itself is fine, but for me, I feel like the main highlights outside of that for the game are the side quests and the side missions. Now, even though they don't have strongholds like they did in Saints Row 2, they have this thing where you can get a call from somebody like, hey, such and such has been spotted over there, take him out, and now you have to take on like 7 different waves of enemies. You can do another side mission where you and Zemos are trafficking drugs around Stillwater and you have to protect him from the enemy gang in that territory while he makes the transactions. You have Tank Mayhem, which basically speaks for itself. It's like the Mayhem side mission in the old GTA games, but this time with a tank. You just destroy huge amounts of property, kill as many people as you can, destroy as many tanks, vehicles, helicopters as you can within a certain time limit to earn a fuck ton of money and respect. This game has side quests galore. There's so many different activities for you to do after you complete the game. But I will say the highlight to the side quests and the highlight of this game is the Professor Genki reality show. So in-game, Steelport has this reality show called Professor Genki, where contestants have to murder waves of enemies through this American Ninja style death obstacle course, all in an attempt to make loads of money. And it does. It gives you a fuck ton of money. The Professor Genki reality show is the most fun I had in this game. It perfectly embodies the chaos and wackiness introduced in this game. Well, the chaos aspect has always been there, but this shit takes it a step above everything else, and I love it. Like, you can literally never get bored playing it. It sucked that it didn't have Stronghold like they did in Saints Row 1 and 2, but I'm so glad they replaced it with this. This was a good replacement, in my opinion. Now, how the game actually plays, it plays exactly like Saints Row 2. I mean, I think it's a lot more fluid than Saints Row 2. They took a little more time with this one than they did the previous games. It's your typical third-person shooter. You know, you have a weapon reel, assault rifles, shotguns, SMGs, pistols galore. It's the typical third-person shooter you saw in Saints Row 2 with a variety of different guns, relatively new guns. I don't think they bring over much from Saints Row 2 into this one, but if I had to compare, I think I like the gunplay in this one better than 2 for 2 reasons. Simply because, one, they have this new addition in the series, the Predator missile. I think this is the only game in the series to have this, but they had a Predator missile in Saints Row 3. It kind of works like that mission in Modern Warfare 2 Big Brother, where you're in a plane and you're supposed to protect a group of soldiers and you have like assault rifles, missiles, rockets, all that. It might not have a machine gun aspect to it, but it keeps the missiles. You can fire a barrage of missiles at enemies through a UAV or plane or wherever the fuck is above, and it destroys everything. Vehicles, people, everything. Now, the tricky part about it is it doesn't really show any blips between friendlies and enemies. You only really detect it is if you have a crosshair. Like, the crosshair will bring red or green whether or not you're over yourself or them, but there's no dots for you to find out what you're shooting at. You kind of just have to know the environment, but I still love it. The second thing I love about this one is the carjacking, the special carjackings. If you're running and you pick triangle or square, you dive through the windshield or the back door, you kick the driver out the seat and you just take off. It's so fucking goofy and unrealistic, but I love it. And it's extremely helpful. If you're being shot at while you have like a 5-star wanted level and you don't have time to just properly jack the driver, you can just super jack him and kick him out the side of the seat. It's hilarious. They do the same thing with executions. If you're running and you pick either LT or RT, you get like a different execution animation, and they're all extremely wacky. There's one where you do like a RKO. There's one where you kind of teabag your opponent. It's so fucking funny to look at, and it's creative as hell. I think the real batshit craziness of this game was, other than Professor Genki, stored and prepped for Horde mode. There's a new addition to this game called Horde mode. It's basically survival. You have to go through waves of enemies, but it's different for each wave. You can either do regular gang members like, Morning Stars or waves of police, or you can fight through waves of armed mascots with a male appendage baseball bat. I swear to God, that's in this game. If you've never played Saints Row 3 or 4, Saints Row 3 introduced it. There is a baseball bat that has a male appendage toy attached at the tip. I don't even know if I can show it on YouTube or say the word. It's freaky as hell. But yeah, you can use that to kill groups of mascots armed with flamethrowers and guns and shit throughout Horde mode. There's even missions where you fight giants. They either shrink you or raise their height, and now you have to kill them with either a minigun or a rocket launcher. There's Horde mode missions where you have to murder brutes, like these Incredible Hulk built motherfuckers. There's a whole character made after one of them in the campaign. You're gonna love them. But you can tell all the craziness went into that. Yes, the story mode had wackiness, but I don't think it dictated the atmosphere. Well, it kind of did. It didn't dictate the entire story the way Saints Row 4 did. They kind of saved a lot of that for the Professor Genki reality show and Horde mode. And Horde mode took it a step above the rest. And to make matters better, it's all co-op. This entire game is co-op, just like Saints Row 2. It's not local play co-op, it's online co-op, which I think is better. It allows more free range for both you and your partner. It's fun as hell. You'd like it. But to kind of get back to my point about the wackiness with this game, yeah, they saved a lot of it for a few funny moments throughout the game, Professor Genki in Horde mode, but I think where the game, it kind of stopped the silliness at one point, and at the point that they stopped was when STAG got involved. STAG is this new militarized gang unit that has been sanctioned by the mayor to take out the Saints, the Morning Star, and all the other gangs in Steelport. And when we're introduced to them, they come in deep. I'm talking about Humvees, tanks, jets, helicopters, every fucking thing. In the middle of the day, through a park. It's like within a matter of seconds, the city becomes overrun with STAG, and now you, Oleg, and Viola have to find a way back to HQ without dying. And don't get me wrong, they still had funny moments after they were introduced, but the way they took themselves so seriously in this game, I think it made up and provided a good balance for the wacky moments they added into Saints Row the Third. Because they handle STAG a lot better than they handled the other enemies in this game. In this game, you got luchadors, hackers, rollerbladers. Like, these are other enemy gangs. The only real serious gang you can take in this game is Morning Star, because they're dressed up in like suits and ties and shits. Everybody else is a fucking Gotham City villain. STAG is the complete opposite. They take themselves so seriously, you would have thought they ended up in the wrong game franchise. Like Army of Two or some shit. And I loved it. You know, it made it feel like the Saints had another real threat to look out for instead of the rollerbladers and the luchadors. It reminded me of a more amped up Ultor from Saints Row 2. Because Ultor was like a company with its own private militia. It was a glorified security unit. STAG, this is military. STAG blows Ultor out the water. All that aside, I want to go back to the question I asked in the beginning. Is this game the reason for the decline of Saints Row the series? In my opinion, yes. But not in the way that people think Saints Row 4 killed the series. You know, when people talk about Saints Row 4, they all say the same thing. Oh, we went from fighting other gangs in the streets to this shit. Now we're fighting aliens in space. They ruined the series. This game used to be serious. And they're right. Saints Row 4 went way too far with the goofy shit. But the reason why I say Saints Row 3 kind of ruined the series, despite Saints Row 4 getting most of the flack, is because Saints Row 3 started the process. Saints Row the Third at times prioritized the goofiness over the seriousness of the story. You did have serious moments like Johnny Gat getting killed or that funeral getting shot up, but you also had wacky moments like shooting up an adult dungeon while naked and drugged. Or that moment in the game where they rip off Tron Legacy and force you to play through a mission of cyberspace. The third dipped in and out of wackiness throughout the entirety of this game. And because of that, it basically gave Saints Row 4 the okay to go overboard. Saints Row 2 follows the story of a no-nonsense gang leader coming back from a coma to take out all the other gangs and regain the reputation of his own. Saints Row 4 is about a former celebrity turned president of the United States taking on an alien invasion with superpowers and sci-fi movie references. Saints Row the Third was the in-between. They didn't just jump from 2 to 4, they tested the waters with 3 and doubled down on the 4th entry. And that's not to say I hate this game, because even though Saints Row 4 was pretty fun, I don't like it for what it did to the series. I do genuinely love Saints Row 3. This is my second favorite game in the series. Yeah, it's wacky, but it takes itself seriously enough to whereas I can kind of connect this story to the series. The first 2 games at least. But we gotta be honest, the 4th game is not where the series took a halt. It was the 3rd one. Let's not forget, this is the same game that halfway through the story introduced a mission where you and the Saints had to stop a zombie invasion from breaking out in Steelport. You thought aliens was crazy? Zombies is right up there. They didn't dictate it throughout the entire game, but the fact that that was a mission to begin with in the main story is wild. I love this game, but I think this is the reason why the series turned out how they did. Now, I do love the customizations, the gunplay. I love everything about this game. This is a fun game, and it's grounded enough for me to say this is technically a Saints game. But it's goofy enough to acknowledge that this is where the series started to turn. But that's just my opinion, you know? I mean, when you look at the ratings for the Saints games, I think the 3rd is the highest rating out of everyone in the series. Which is weird because when you talk to people, I feel like everyone considers the 2nd one the best one. I consider the 2nd one the best one. But when you Google it, I think Saints Row the 3rd, that one has like a 10 out of 10 on Steam. Like, this game was praised really highly by critics. And as I said, I don't blame them. Like I told you, I love this game. Hell, I loved this game at the time. It wasn't until I became an adult where I kind of looked back at it and said, you know what, this is kind of, the 4, yeah, it was bad, but this shit, it's not innocent. You had a hand in the murder too. Nonetheless, I still love Saints Row the Third. I wish they kept the online aspect from the 2nd one, because in the 2nd one they kind of treated it like Call of Duty. You know, you had team deathmatch and free-for-alls. I love Horde mode. I'm glad they made it. I just wish they also kept the Saints Row 2 style of online. That would have been fun. But nonetheless, that's what I have. This is my opinion. I mean, hey, tell me what you think. Do you think the series died off around Saints Row 3? Or are you one of those people who believe 4 was the killer? I won't blame you for either or, man. They both. It was a double homicide. In my eyes, at least. But let me know how you felt about Saints Row the Third. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Hell, did you like Saints Row 4? I wouldn't blame you if you said yes. I mean, yeah, it's goofy, but it had good gameplay. But that's all I got for y'all, man. I appreciate y'all for watching Reggie TV. I'll see y'all on the next one, and I'm out.